Tonight, Saskatchewan's finances are back in the red as the slim budget surplus slips away. Insurance claims start to pile up after Wednesday's storms. And a Saskatoon basketball court gets a colorful revamp from a Saskatchewan nonprofit.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, August 22nd, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. The province's first quarter fiscal update shows Saskatchewan is back into a deficit. It comes after the province touted a surplus at budget time back in March. Alexander Kwan has more on why our financial picture has changed.
We have a government who is unwilling at budget time to even be honest with Saskatchewan people.
When the provincial government tabled its budget in March, it projected a razor-thin surplus for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. On Friday, the government released an update for quarter one. It shows the $12 million surplus has plummeted and is now projected to be a $349 million deficit. The official opposition says it proves something they've known all along.
You know, we said from day one that this budget wasn't worth the paper that it was printed on. Everyone who looks at the results here today will know that that's the case. The Sask Party passed a budget that they knew was nonsense.
Finance Minister Jim Ryder is defending his government, saying the update shows an attempt to find the right balance between affordability and investment. He says the government will continue to do this into the future.
Taking it very seriously, right? We're about to go into budget process. We're going to sharpen our pencils and look for places to save money, but at the same time, we're not going to do it at the expense of healthcare, education, or the other services that people in Saskatchewan expect.
The province's drop in revenue is mostly due to a decrease in SaskPower's net income. That's because the province removed the federal carbon tax from customers' bills. Saskatchewan is also projecting higher expenses. Ryder says that's mostly due to an $80 million increase to address wildfire costs and evacuation efforts. The province's budget never included tariff contingencies. With the situation still fluid and Canada announcing changes to its policies on Friday, Ryder says he's optimistic.
That's the very big unknown right now with the announcements today, right? Nobody saw this coming just a few days ago, but now it is. So we've got to be flexible. We've got to see how that turns out. I am hoping at some point in the next few months that a new trade deal is reached and we can put this behind us.
Organizations like the Canadian Taxpayers Federation have already slammed the government's update, but Ryder says the province is fiscally healthy. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The Saskatchewan Union of Nurses is raising red flags about the situation at Jim Pattison Children's Hospital. Maternity nurses who work there have been submitting anonymous reports about serious quality of care issues. One nurse claims there were 2 patients in labor but no available beds. They say some babies have even been born in assessment rooms. The union says it's received 22 reports flagging patient safety concerns just this year.
They're working without the resources they need to provide safe, competent, quality care. People are going without epidurals when they need it to give birth, to manage the pain. They're seeing people with more complex health issues, but no increase in resources and support to provide those services. And so we're seeing an increase in burnout. We're seeing people who are fed up and tired and don't know what to do anymore.
Boynton says nurses often send complaints anonymously to the union because they fear their nursing license could be on the line. The Ministry of Health says the hospital saw an extremely high number of births in July, combined with staff vacations and illness. But it says staffing levels and birth levels returned to normal in August and that patient safety is its top priority. Canada is changing tactics in its trade war with the United States. Prime Minister Mark Carney says next month Canada will remove all tariffs on goods from the United States that are covered by the CUSMA trade deal. He made the announcement following a phone call with U.S. President Donald Trump. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, the move is generating both praise and criticism.
A major strategy shift in the trade war with the U.S.
I'm announcing today that the Canadian government will now match the United States by removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under CUSMA.
The Prime Minister says 25% levies on American goods will be scrapped for those products that comply with the Canada-United States-Mexico agreement.
Part of this is getting to a better balance with the United States.
Mark Carney says U.S. President Donald Trump assured him in a phone call on Thursday the move will kickstart negotiations on a new trade deal between the two countries.
We are working on something. We want to be very good to Canada. I like Carney a lot. I think he's a good person.
Today we learned that it has been yet another capitulation and climb down by Mark Carney. His elbows have mysteriously gone missing.
The announcement may have scored favors with the White House, but Carney is facing heavy criticism from political opponents.
He promised he would have elbows up. He promised he could, quote, handle Trump, and that he would, quote, negotiate a win. Those are his promises, and he needs to be judged by his word.
Although most countermeasures will be lifted, Carney is making some exceptions. Tariffs will remain on U.S. steel, autos, and aluminum, industries hit hard by the president.
It is not necessary that Canada retains free trade with the United States. What is necessary is that it retains preferential access to the United States better than what everyone else has got.
Carney insists Canada has the best trade deal with the U.S. The Prime Minister says consultations on a new agreement will begin next month. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, all that extreme weather earlier this week has left a trail of damage around Saskatoon and beyond, and we're now starting to hear about just how much of an effect it is having. SGI says it has received 13 auto claims from around Saskatoon and Prince Albert. One woman from Warman says she'll be filing an insurance claim because her car was damaged. She recorded this video as she was caught in the intense hailstorm while traveling near North Battleford.
The hail came and it was hitting so hard. We had to pull over. Other people were pulling over. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I think it's going to come through my windshield. And well, sure enough, yep, great big crack. It was so loud. And I was like, I don't know when this is going to quit or if I'm going to get to North Battleford, which thankfully I did. Had to pull over a couple times more, made it to the parking lot in North Battleford at the co-op. And boy, did it come. I've never seen anything like it before.
As for property claims, SGI Canada says it has received a couple from Saskatoon so far. Most of the auto and property claims are due to hail. SGI says these numbers are preliminary and they expect to receive more claims in the coming weeks. Well, there is a new place for kids of all ages to play basketball in Saskatoon. The first Buckets and Borders project is being unveiled there this weekend. Aishwarya Duda has more.
A basketball court transformed into a work of art. Not just a place to shoot hoops, but a place where kids and community can connect. Buckets and Borders, the Saskatchewan nonprofit, restores basketball courts across Canada. And this is a first for Saskatoon in Buena Vista Park.
What inspired us to start Buckets and Borders was really just to get back through the game that has done a lot for our lives. And I think, for us, we've been inspired to do work all across the country. And that's really something that has fueled us in our ambition to do more projects from coast to coast.
The group partners with artists and youth to tell a story that represents their community. Right on the court, Chris Chipak of Red Pheasant Cree Nation worked on his first ever outdoor mural for the project.
All these shades of that we see on the court are variants of colors I see in the sky during Northern Lights.
Buckets and Borders has now completed more than 25 courts across Canada, each one unique.
Basketball is a beautiful game. It's one of the most, if not the most, inclusive, diverse games, accessible games.
Lee says seeing kids play on the courts is the ultimate reward.
No better feeling than seeing the courts being used. I mean, that's the goal. And we see incredible increases in participation in a lot of the sports that we do across the country.
The grand opening is Saturday at 4 p.m. There's a barbecue, 3-point contests, music, and even a chance to win some cool sneakers. Aishwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, yes, it is still summer, but it certainly felt more like fall in Regina and really much of the province on Friday. A chilly day, not helped by the strong winds and cloudy skies. But the weekend is looking pleasant, and we could be returning to the summer heat by early next week. I'll have all the details for you in your forecast after the break. Stay with us. Well, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, you may be considering an electric car or hybrid or a gas-powered ride. But with new environmental targets coming in, there are questions swirling about what will be allowed on the road in the future. Alex Soloduca does some fact-checking and myth-busting for us.
I am announcing today that Conservatives are launching a massive nationwide campaign to stop Mark Carney's ban on gas-powered vehicles.
That's Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre on a Saskatchewan farm. He's referring to a ban on gas vehicles imposed by the Liberal government in Canada. But is a ban really looming overhead? Well, not exactly. Canada is introducing sales targets for new vehicles. The goal is that 100% of small cars, trucks, and SUVs sold will be zero emission by 2035. But it won't be an all-out ban on gas vehicles. We have no reason to believe that cars already on the road will be impacted at all. So you can keep driving the gas vehicle you already own.
On January 1st, the Carney mandate, the Carney ban on your gas vehicle, will begin to be phased in. It will require 20% of dealership sales to be electric, and any car sold above that quota will pay a $20,000 tax.
The first interim target is for 20% of new vehicle sales to be EVs by 2026. So this is partly true, but in the plan on EVs, there's no mention of a $20,000 tax for not hitting quotas.
Could that run on an electric battery? How could you move your grain to markets? How could you do the regular work that's required to have a pickup truck in minus 40-degree weather in February? It is simply not possible.
Farm equipment like Poilievre was referring to in that clip, whether it's tractors or grain trucks, isn't part of the EV conversation right now. The targets only apply to new light-duty passenger vehicles.
The Liberals' mandate would continue to worsen as years go by until 2035, when gas vehicles would be banned altogether. The auto industry is already under enormous stress after Mark Carney broke his promise to get a July 21st, 2025 deal to end the tariffs imposed by the United States.
The next interim target is for at least 60% of new vehicle sales to be EVs by 2030. The mandate will roll out in stages. And it's fair to say the auto industry has expressed some stress about the whole thing. The CEOs of Canada's big three automakers have come together to ask for a break.
The EV mandate itself is not sustainable. The targets that have been established cannot be met.
When it comes to tariffs, Poilievre's right. Canada and the US have yet to make a deal. And while there are some tariffs and counter tariffs on vehicles, experts say you'd be hard-pressed to find a purely American or Canadian vehicle because the auto sectors in both countries are so dependent on each other. Individual parts can go back and forth over the Canada-US border a half dozen times before a car is finished. Just last week, Prime Minister Carney said he hasn't spoken to President Trump recently, but is willing to, when it makes sense. Environment and Climate Change Canada says the targets are meant to grow the electric vehicle supply chain in the country. The hopes that EVs will become more affordable here, making it easier to fight climate change. When asked if the standard will be changed or paused because of tariffs, the ministry said it's still in place, but they continue to meaningfully engage with industry and explore flexibility to make sure that measures reflect times we are in. So to wrap up, Gas vehicles that are already on the road will not be impacted by these targets. But Environment and Climate Change Canada says it's keeping in mind that vehicles typically last about 15 years. So, by putting in place a new sales target of 100% zero emissions vehicles by 2035, it's hoping that by 2050, most personal vehicles that do pollute will be off the road.
Well, we're ending the work week on a bit of a chilly note for many locations, including in Regina. The sun has come out after all over the supper hour here on Friday, but a lot of places not managing to get very warm. Let's take a look at where we were at for daytime highs Friday, into the even mid-teens in some places in east central Saskatchewan. 22 appears to be the best that we got there in Leader. And add to that some pretty strong winds at times. We saw gusts actually over 60 kilometers an hour in both Regina and Estevan, keeping the temperatures feeling a little bit chillier than they actually were. Part of the reason for that wind is that low pressure system that you see swirling over southern Manitoba there. That's what caused all the severe weather and the heavy rain in our province earlier in the week, but it is finally starting to pull away, and this area of high pressure that has been pushing against it finally wins the battle as it starts to move in on Saturday. We may see a few sprinkles of rain in eastern sections of the province, but otherwise pretty quiet weather weekend expected. By Sunday, all out sunshine, especially for the southern half of the province. As that starts to pull away, though, a little bit of cloud moving into the north, and we could see a few sprinkles here and there. That could move south into east central Saskatchewan and into the Parkland region, but overall not expecting any real significant accumulation there. High pressure also means a diminishing in the winds, thankfully. A little bit breezy Saturday afternoon for the southeast, but come Sunday, pretty much everyone experiencing some nice calm conditions. But the weekend, even though we're going to see some kind of below seasonal temperatures, I think, things are really going to start to heat up as we get into the next week here. The ridge starting to build in from out west will bring a return to some very hot weather. And when we talk about 30-degree weather, Regina, we usually see about 11 or 12 days from May to August where we hit 30 degrees. We've actually seen 14 of those days so far, but in Saskatoon, we definitely have not been hitting the warmth. We usually see about 9 days between May and August where we hit 30 degrees. We've only had 7 of those days so far, and actually, the month with the most number of 30-degree days was actually in the month of May. We only had 1 day each in July and June where we hit 30 degrees. So I think in the month of August, though, we are going to add to that, as you can see here in your extended forecast. After that pleasant weekend, things really starting to take off, especially as we get into Tuesday, and then the sunshine and hot temperatures continue for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. In Regina, we'll be looking at temperatures pretty much the same for Saturday and Sunday. In fact, conditions very similar for each of those days. And then for Regina, back into the mid-20s by Monday. Sunshine and hot weather starts to kick off for Tuesday before we hit those 30-degree temperatures for Wednesday, and staying into the upper 20s for Thursday and Friday likely. You'll also note there the overnight lows starting to creep back up into the mid-teens, indicating that we are going to be getting very close to heat warning criteria once again, which is something we'll be watching as we get into next week. A historic landmark in Sweden's far north was on the move earlier this week, and it offers a very different meaning to the term the weight of the church. This 113-year-old church weighing about 600 tons was moved to a new home. It is part of a 30-year project to relocate the buildings and thousands of residents in the old city center of Kiruna to save them from sinking ground. The location is also where a nearby massive iron ore mine is planning an expansion. The new city center is 5 kilometers down the road. The 2-day journey for the lumbering church on a specially built trailer moved at 500 meters per hour. South African skydiver Jean-Jacques Wallace is redefining the limits of extreme aerial sports with death-defying plunges like this. He is one of the world's fastest wingsuit flyers, achieving speeds of up to 230 kilometers an hour. Wallace has spent more than 2 decades mastering the art of human flight. Wingsuit flying is one of the most dangerous aerial sports, but boy, what a rush. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Saskatchewan stacked up its medal count at the Canada Summer Games in St. John's Friday, taking gold in the women's 400-meter race and triple jump, silver in the women's 400-meter and artistic swimming, and bronze in the men's 100-meter, Special Olympics 100-meter, and golf. Here's a look at how other teams did on Friday. After going undefeated in preliminary play, the men's lacrosse team lost their quarterfinal match to Alberta Friday with a final score of 7-5. They will play in a consolation game against Manitoba Saturday afternoon. The men's volleyball team also dropped their quarterfinal game against Manitoba. They were blanked 3-0. They'll head to a consolation game against BC Saturday. But the women's volleyball team had success in their quarterfinal, beating Nova Scotia 3-1. That earns them a spot in Saturday's semi-final against Ontario. The winner goes on to the gold medal match on Sunday. The men's softball team had a busy day Friday with 3 games. They shut out New Brunswick 12-0 in their first game. They had an equally dominant game against BC with a 12-1 victory, but finished with a tough 8-1 loss to Ontario. They now head to a qualification match. And after going 3-1 in preliminary play, the women's baseball team will take on Team Ontario Saturday morning in the quarterfinal. The winner of that match heads to the semis against BC that evening. Well, some of us across South and Central could see a bit of a chilly night as the skies clear. No risk of frost, though, at this point anyway, but there is the chance we could see some fog redeveloping in spots. Actually going to be warmer in northern Saskatchewan with lows around 10 degrees, but a little bit more cloud cover in place. That means those temperatures will stay a bit warmer. Although skies will clear for northern Saskatchewan as we get into Saturday afternoon. Maybe a few sprinkles closer to the Manitoba border, but then some nice temperatures back to seasonal, especially in western sections. South and Central, we are in for a sunny start to the day after a cloudy Friday. Temperatures, again, not getting overly warm, but it is going to be pretty much seasonal or just slightly below seasonal day for many of us. 20 degrees is not that bad. Of course, the winds will be lighter and we'll see some sunshine as those rain showers start to make their way out. And that is our news for this Friday. For more news anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. And you can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend.